When 17-year-old Jake Miller took a summer job at a high-end hotel in New York, he never imagined that a single act of kindness would turn his life upside down. He was just a regular kid from a working-class family, trying to save up for college, while balancing school and his part-time job as a bellboy. But one evening, as he was finishing his shift, something happened that changed everything. Jake was in the hotel lobby, arranging suitcases for guests, when he noticed a woman struggling with a heavy bag. She was elegant, tall, and dressed in a way that suggested she was someone important. But what struck Jake the most was that she seemed to be alone. No security, no assistance, just her. He quickly stepped forward. "Ma'am, let me help you." "With that," he offered, grabbing the suitcase before she could protest. The woman smiled warmly. "That's very kind of you, thank you." Jake had helped dozens of guests before, but there was something different about her. As he rolled her suitcase to the elevator, he couldn't shake the feeling that she looked familiar. Then, as the elevator doors were closing, it hit him. She was Melania Trump, the former First Lady of the United States. His heart pounded. He had just helped one of the most recognizable women in the country, and she had thanked him personally. He didn't think much of it afterward. It was just another day at work, until the next morning. Jake arrived at the hotel for his shift. But as soon as he walked in, his manager, Mr. Townsend, was waiting for him, arms crossed and an expression of pure disapproval. "Jake, step into my office," Townsend ordered. Confused, Jake followed. As soon as the door shut behind them, his manager's voice turned sharp. "You were seen interacting with a high-profile guest last night. Do you have any idea what kind of security risk that is?" Jake blinked in disbelief. "Sir, I was just helping her with her bag. She didn't have security around, and she seemed to appreciate it." "That's not your job, Jake. We don't approach VIPs unless instructed. Do you have any idea how much trouble this could cause us?" Townsend slammed a folder onto his desk. "We can't afford even the slightest misstep with guests like that. Effective immediately, you're fired." Jake felt like the floor had been pulled from under him. Fired? For helping someone? It didn't make sense. No amount of pleading could change his boss's mind. Within minutes, he was walking out of the hotel with his final paycheck and a deep sense of injustice. He had no idea that his story was about to take an unbelievable turn. That evening, he went home, defeated. He told his parents everything, and while they were outraged, there wasn't much they could do. But then, something unexpected happened. His phone buzzed with a notification, a message from an unknown number. "Jake, this is Melania Trump. I heard what happened. Please call me." His hands trembled as he stared at the screen. Was this real? How did she even find his number? After hesitating for a moment, he dialed the number. "Hello, Mrs. Trump?" Her voice was warm and reassuring. "Jake, I just found out about what happened to you. I want to help." Jake was speechless. Why would someone like her care about a random bellboy? "The way you treated me with kindness without expecting anything in return, it meant something," she continued. "People like you deserve opportunities, not punishment." Jake was overwhelmed with gratitude, but he didn't expect what came next. "I have a foundation that helps young people with ambition," she said. "I want to sponsor your education." Jake almost dropped his phone. His family had been struggling to save for his college tuition, and now, here was Melania Trump, offering him a future. "Ma'am, I don't know what to say," he stammered. "Just say yes," she said with a smile in her voice. Jake did. In the weeks that followed, everything changed. The news of his unfair firing spread online, sparking outrage. People rallied behind him, calling out the hotel's poor decision. Meanwhile, Melania's foundation arranged for Jake to attend a prestigious university with a full scholarship. But that wasn't all. His story caught the attention of major news outlets. He was invited to share his experience on talk shows, where he spoke about kindness, integrity, and how one simple action can change a life. Job offers poured in. Companies admired his work ethic and honesty. A year later, Jake walked into a boardroom, not as an employee, but as a guest speaker at a leadership seminar. He was no longer just a bellboy. He was a young man with a future brighter than he had ever imagined, all because he chose to help someone when no one else did. And as he looked back on the moment that got him fired, he realized something. Sometimes, the worst day of your life is just the beginning of something incredible. As Jake stood in front of the packed auditorium, he took a deep breath, letting the moment sink in. Just a year ago, he had been an ordinary hotel bellboy, uncertain about his future. Now he was sharing his story with aspiring young leaders, entrepreneurs and professionals who wanted to hear how a simple act of kindness had changed his life. After the seminar, several attendees approached him, eager to shake his hand. One of them, a well-dressed man in his 40s, introduced himself as Daniel Whitmore, a successful businessman who had built a hospitality empire. "Jake, your story is inspiring," Daniel said. "I run a chain of luxury hotels, and I'd love to have someone like you on my team. What do you say?" Jake couldn't believe it. Just a year ago, he had been fired from a hotel job. Now, the owner of an even bigger chain was offering him an opportunity. "I appreciate the offer, Mr. Whitmore," Jake said, "but I have a different vision for my future now." Daniel raised an eyebrow. "Oh? And what's that?" Jake smiled. "I want to start my own foundation, one that helps young people who get knocked down by life but refuse to stay down, just like Melania Trump helped me." Daniel nodded, clearly impressed. "That's an incredible goal, Jake. If you ever need investors, call me." The next few months were a whirlwind. With the help of Melania Trump's foundation and several other sponsors who admired his story, Jake launched his own organization, the Second Chance Initiative. Its mission? To support young people who faced unfair setbacks, whether they had been fired, rejected, or told they weren't good enough. At first, the initiative started small. Jake and his team helped a handful of students find scholarships, internships, and mentorships. But as his story continued to spread, donations and partnerships grew. Within 2 years, the Second Chance Initiative had helped hundreds of young people get back on their feet. Meanwhile, the hotel that had fired him faced intense public backlash. After the incident went viral, customers began canceling reservations, criticizing their treatment of employees. The hotel tried to recover, issuing a public apology, but the damage was done. Mr. Townsend, the very manager who had fired Jake, was eventually let go. One day, as Jake was reviewing applications for his foundation, he came across a familiar name, Richard Townsend. His old manager had applied for help. Jake sat back in his chair, staring at the screen in disbelief. Mr. Townsend explained in his application that after losing his job, he had struggled to find work. His reputation had been tarnished, and despite years in the industry, no one wanted to hire him. He admitted that he had made a mistake with Jake and had learned the hard way that kindness should never be punished. For a moment, Jake considered rejecting the application. After all, this was the man who had once treated him unfairly, the man who had cost him his job. But then he remembered everything he had been through, how Melania Trump had given him a second chance when no one else had. So Jake made a decision. He called Mr. Townsend and offered him a position, not as a hotel manager, but as a mentor, for young professionals learning about leadership and integrity. When Mr. Townsend answered the call, his voice was filled with hesitation. "Jake?" he asked, clearly shocked. "Yes, Mr. Townsend. I read your application." A long silence followed. Then, Townsend sighed. "I don't expect you to forgive me." Jake smiled. "Maybe not right away, but I believe in second chances. Do you, Mr.?" Townsend's voice broke. "I do." And just like that, the cycle had come full circle. Jake had gone from being fired to changing lives, from a bellboy to a leader. His story became a testament to the power of resilience, kindness, and the idea that sometimes the worst moments in life set you up for something far greater. And as he continued to grow the Second Chance Initiative, he realized one simple truth. Sometimes, helping just one person can change everything. As Jake's Second Chance initiative grew, so did his influence. He was invited to speak at conferences, featured in news articles, and even recognized by prominent leaders who admired his dedication to helping others. What started as a small organization quickly turned into a national movement. One day, Jake received an unexpected invitation, a private meeting with Melania Trump. He arrived at the luxurious office building where the meeting was set to take place, his heart pounding. With anticipation, a staff member led him to a private lounge where Melania greeted him with a warm smile. "Jake, it's wonderful to see you again," she said, motioning for him to sit. "Mrs. Trump, I can't thank you enough for everything you did for me," Jake said sincerely. "I wouldn't be here without your help." She shook her head. "No, Jake, you did this yourself. I only gave you a chance, and you proved to the world that kindness and determination can take you far." Jake felt humbled, but what she said next stunned him. "I want to expand my foundation, and I believe the Second Chance initiative is the perfect partner. What do you think about joining forces to make an even bigger impact?" Jake was speechless. The opportunity to work with Melania Trump on a larger scale was beyond anything he had ever imagined. "I would be honored," he finally said. With that partnership, the Second Chance initiative expanded across the country. They launched mentorship programs, scholarship funds, and leadership workshops to help young people who had faced adversity. Stories poured in from individuals who had lost jobs, struggled in school, or been rejected from opportunities, only to find hope through Jake's organization. One of those stories belonged to a young woman named Maria. She had once been a straight-A student with dreams of becoming a lawyer, but after her father lost his job, she had to drop out of college to support her family. When she applied for the Second Chance initiative, Jake personally reviewed her case and arranged a scholarship for her. Years later, Maria graduated with honors and became a lawyer specializing in workers' rights. One day, she met Jake at a POF charity gala and hugged him tightly. "You believed in me when no one else did," she said, tears in her eyes. "Now I want to help others the way you helped me." Moments like these reminded Jake why he had started this journey in the first place. But the biggest surprise was yet to come. One afternoon, Jake received a letter in the mail. It was from the White House. His hands trembled as he opened it. The letter was an official invitation. He had been selected to receive the Presidential Medal of Freedom for his contributions to society. Jake could hardly believe it. Just a few years ago, he had been a fired bellboy with no clear future. Now he was being honored as a national hero. The ceremony was held at the White House, attended by dignitaries, celebrities, and influential leaders. As Jake stood on stage receiving his medal, he reflected on everything that had brought him to this moment. All of it, his struggles, his setbacks, his moments of doubt, had led to something greater than he could have ever imagined. After the ceremony, a reporter asked him, "Jake, what's next for you?" He smiled. "I'm just getting started." And with that, Jake continued his mission, proving that sometimes what seems like the worst day of your life is just the beginning of something extraordinary.